Hey guys, so I'm going to kick off the build series for the Tamiya Grasshopper 2. I'm going to start it out by building the gearbox, so let's jump right into it. So this video is going to cover the gearbox like I mentioned previously, and that will be steps 2 through 5. So you do need your bushings or bearings for step 2. You'll need your grease. And you also need, it does show you mounting the motor. I will need this bag, because this is your gearbox cover, as well as some like motor mounts, a couple other pieces. Also are going to need the gears, and then your drive shafts, the grease, and the screws. So let's get into it. To cut out these parts, I'm going to use these wire cutters because I don't really have much else. So it's a little snip, nice and easy, and try to get it as close as possible. It's not going to be perfect. This is going to be the rear axle gearbox cover type of thing. Once we have this out, I'm really going to need the part bag A, because I need the drive shafts, I need my gears, and I also need my bearings. The majority of these kits come with plastic bushings and then one brass bushing. You could buy other brands for relatively cheap of actual metal bearings. That's what's recommended. So I picked up these Winter Evening for 10 bucks. Not a bad deal at all. And they look like really nice bearings, so I'm excited to try those out. When you look at the instructions, you didn't know, they're telling you to grease, kind of, you can see the little bottle, and it's also a darker image almost, right? So you could see that pretty well. You could see that on all the different parts of this gearbox, all the diffs. So we're going to go ahead and assemble that, which I believe these bearings are all the same, with the exception of this one smaller one. This bad boy here, and a B large bevel gear. So that looks like this is the large bevel gear in step 2, and it shows going like so. We need this bad boy, which is just gonna sit right in here. Oh, I'm gonna need the other, what is this? The other bevel gear and rear shaft. Let's throw some grease on. That. Slide it on, it's all greased up. Goes into here. Oh, I did not line that up right. There we go, like so. And then I need the B8B. Looks like out of their little bushing kit. Is this big biggest looking shaft, I need to grease you. Okay. I then need to place a bearing in here, which also needs to get greased. Just kind of gonna rub that over, that will work. So bearing goes in like so. This shaft goes in here. On the front side of the shaft, or on the front side of this gear is where the small bearing goes. I don't know if you can see that, but it's in there. Once that happens, that gets placed. And then that could go in first. Then this goes in. So now that that is lined up, okay, and then another bearing goes right on this back side, right into there. Same thing here. Just push this bearing in on this side. There's also a couple screws. This little plastic piece called a B1 gets screwed in, which is this little tiny piece up here. Okay, so there's my B1, and that gets screwed on to this. So right here, you can see a screw hole, and then there's like a little cap that goes over, or a little bump. And this piece only has one screw hole size, so that little bump goes over there. And then you screw it in with a BA6, which that is the correct screw. From here, we need to have, there's going to be 4 screws, the BA5s. So I'm going to need those 4 screws. I'm going to need these 4 little rods. 2, 3, 4. These 3 little gears and this larger gear. These pins go into the smaller gear, so I got to grease that all up. And when you take this larger gear, there's these little like slots. I don't know that the pins go in. Hopefully you can see that. And they're gonna just fall into, they're just gonna fall into place like that. Make sure you grease up all these gears really well. Grease this remaining rod, and that rod's in there. Push that in. Other side gets lined up. So I realized off camera that I did not put the little spacer in my gears. So I had to go back and do that. Just when you're building this, make sure you take your time and build it. Match all the parts up to the images and just make sure you're good to go. You could see here I'm getting the motor set up. I do a little comparison of the size difference between the 540 and the 380, and get the 18-tooth pinion gear on. Then I go ahead and work to attach the motor to the gearbox. It was a little tricky to line up, but you just got to take your time like the rest of the build, and then there's not really an issue. The biggest thing I learned from building the gearbox is, again, just take your time, match the pieces up to the image, and as long as you do that, you should be just fine. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of this build series, and I'll see you in the next one.